speakers up full blast, play it all night long.
A hot thing in audio today seems to be these fairly inexpensive wireless microphones like the Rode Wireless Go 2, which has been around a while and it's a standard, but there's some other mics that are coming along that compete with it. These wireless mics with small transmitters, internal mics in them that range between $250 and $400 typically. Audio equipment is often described in categories like professional, consumer, good for podcasts, prosumer equipment, sound enthusiast equipment, things of that nature. So there's quite a bit of vague labeling. This video is really just to look at this DJI wireless mic, which is getting a lot of good press, and not label it so much as necessarily professional or prosumer or whatever, but really just see how it does from a sound quality in a controlled environment between it and a wired mic. I'm using the SE V7 as the wired mic because it does pretty well with my voice, a good representation of my voice with little post-processing, even compared to more expensive mics. So I want to start there. I'm not crazy about these comparisons of sound quality that's done on YouTube because there's too many variables, People are watching on TVs and their phones and they're listening to headphones that have enhanced, frequency responses and things of that nature. Unless we have more of a controlled environment, it's really hard to hear the difference with sound comparisons using YouTube videos, So relative to this one, I am going to do just very little post-processing, and in a controlled environment, just in the studio, I'm just going to compare the wired to the DJI wireless mic using the internal mic because they're proud of their little small transmitter. Both mics will be recorded using a Zoom F6 recorder using 32-bit float. I don't think it matters that much, that 32-bit float, when it comes to the DJI mic, because through the receiver it already goes through a DAC. I've done some distance testing with these mics, which people like to do with multiple wireless mics, but I don't really have the results of that here. I mean, I can just tell you a quick word on the distance test that I've done is that I find that if there's a direct line of sight, the ones that are pretty reputable, they all do well for hundreds of feet if there's line of sight and the receiver and the transmitter are facing each other. But there's a lot of videos out there that you can look at to really get the details on distance and how they do and how the connection is maintained within the studio or in the house through different rooms and whatnot. They do pretty well, Once someone turns their back where the transmitter is not facing the receiver, when they turn their back to the receiver, I've noticed that they really don't keep a good connection much over maybe 100 feet with the ones I've looked at. But if you're interested in distance testing and features and functions of these wireless mics, there's so many YouTubes on that. Have at it. This is really just to look at the sound quality of voice between a wired mic and the DJI wireless mic. This is something that a lot of people may be interested in because often they're doing a video that has wired and wireless in it, and of course you don't want to have too big a contrast between them. You want the audio to sound fairly consistent between the wired and the wireless. I suggest when listening to this, you use headphones or monitors that don't enhance frequencies, providing as flat a frequency response as possible. So let's start with an example comparing the wired SE V7 mic to the DJI wireless mic with no post-processing, and I'll read a passage from a book. Here we go. Silence, bellowed the stranger, and now the sulfur fully invaded my nostrils and I choked. I had been called by many names. I was sitting at the bar drinking Wild Turkey 101 and talking aloud to myself. It's not fair. I'd do anything to have Sarah for my very own, anything, whispered a voice to my right, and I turned and faced the sneering smile and merry, wicked eyes of a stranger sitting next to me. Yeah, sure, stranger, I said. Why, I'd give up anything if only Sarah would love me the way that I love her. Silence, bellowed the stranger, and now the sulfur fully invaded my nostrils and I choked. I had been called by many names. I was sitting at the bar drinking Wild Turkey 101 and talking aloud to myself. It's not fair. I'd do anything to have Sarah for my very own. Anything, whispered a voice to my right, and I turned and faced the sneering smile and merry wicked eyes of a stranger sitting next to me. Yeah, sure, stranger, I said. Why, I'd give up anything if only Sarah would love me the way that I love her. The difference is obvious, I think. And here's a comparison now, reading again with minimal post-processing, just adding a bit of low-frequency boost to the DJI mic audio to get a little closer to the wired SE-V7 mic. I thought we had a pretty good defense. We made the point that people die every day. It's not such a big deal. We tried to get the jury to believe that I had an evil twin brother and it was he who was guilty and not me. And we even told them not to feel bad. Even though I was found guilty, I never blamed my lawyer. Not to lead the witness with an opinion, but I find the DJI mic does pretty well. It does a nice job. It's not the same, as it does lack the bottom end compared to the clean bass that the wired mic has. But with all the functions of the wireless mic, I'm quite impressed, and it's something I think that I could use, you know. To summarize, please indulge me philosophically, especially with the quest many have to label equipment as professional versus hobbyist or consumer level. With use cases changing constantly in the world today of video everywhere, and with technology improvements and cost per quality going down, the line can blur depending on the use case as to what is pro equipment and what is not. This DJI mic does quite well, like the Rode Wireless, but remember that professional wireless equipment used in commercial use, movies, big live events, etc., utilize lavalier mics that usually start at $600 or more per person, and that's just the mic, not to mention all the wireless equipment per person. So it's relative, but these lower price solutions have a place. Pro, consumer, enthusiast, prosumer, whatever label we use, the editing engineer's ears will likely hear the difference. When I think of the term professional sound equipment, I have to think of Al Schmidt, one of the most renowned sound recording engineers of his time. On interviews, I've heard Al talk about how in the recording studio he did less EQ, but instead preferred using the right microphones for the job, by instrument, voice, etc. And then he depended on the crossover between the mics in the room to give him the full sound that made his recordings uniquely successful. And they were Neumann mics or equivalent that would cost maybe $6,000 a mic today, and there were dozens of them. This extreme example, only to say that it's all relative, obviously. This is an analysis of a $300 wireless mic, and it does a pretty good job. So I think with the changing use cases that we have today and the changing quality for price, I mean, it really is relative, right, to the hundreds of thousands of dollars spent in sound studios with so many people doing different things in video and even small companies wanting a video and YouTube videos, let's say whether they're selling real estate or whatever they're selling. This could be a professional setup for somebody, because if you make money with it, obviously that's the definition of professional. Well, that's it. I hope it was helpful. And I didn't get into the features and functions. It's really just about the voice sound quality that I was concerned with on this video. Over and out.
Sing home, Alabama, sing that deadbed song. Turn them speakers up full blast, play it all night long.